Welcome to Heartspeak Podcast, episode 71, Meeting Our Future. Well, here we are. We've gone past the full moon, and my goodness, she was so beautiful, wasn't she? Shining for us all on this Scorpio full moon. Now we've moved into what's known as this disseminating, the waning moon. So as we'll notice, the light of the moon gets less and less until we see it no more at the dark moon, about 14 days' time. And we are now on our journey of merging with the moon and resonating with our own rhythms, resetting our own rhythms, finding that place where just after the full moon, when we celebrated our light, we stood in our light, we're now in this place where we're saying, okay, now, how do I fertilize that light? How do I bring that more fully into being? If we were wanting to get pregnant, for instance, as a woman, this would be the same time as ovulation, is the full moon. And then about 5 days after the full moon is my most fertile time, my most sensual time, the time when I can attract someone who wants to fertilize my eggs. That's how it happens. And so practically, let's say I'm doing a course, I'm running these Facebooks, these next 5 days would be very important for me to fertilize my ideas, to share them on social media, to share them with everybody and say, look who I am, because our ideas are almost only as good as they are received and they're moved. So I, as a Gemini, for instance, I see myself as a bee or a butterfly. And what I do is I move information from one flower to another. I move pollen from one flower to another. And in doing that, I pollinate the whole of the plant kingdom. That's how we experience this pollination of fruit trees. Without the bees, without the insects, there's no pollination. In other words, we're not just moving information for the sake of moving, but we're also enhancing, we're creating. So for instance, you listening to my podcast, it's not just my words, you're now taking my words or my voice and how you hear it, and you're relating it to your own stories, relating it to your own knowledge, and in that it becomes changed. So it's not just repeating what I've said, I've never wanted you to do that, but it's about expanding it because it is fertilized by your own knowledge. It's as if we have a relationship and it's not my knowledge, it's not yours, there's something bigger occur, like a child, as we say. I hope that makes sense. So this is a time of fertilization. This is a time, as I say, of dissemination, but it's dissemination of ideas, of thoughts, of stories. So over these next few days, it's really good to share where you can what you're learning, what you've experienced. Again, you're welcome to share that on the Facebook group, Great Mother Calling. But it's about not just having your voice, but having your voice and meeting other people with that. And what I want to disseminate, what I want to share with you today is very much some of the work that I've been picking up as I went along for my own journey. But where are we? Why is this happening? And it felt so relevant for me to share that with you today. So I've been listening to someone called Bashar, and he's been talking about where we are now. And I have to say, it resonated. Again, we disseminated, we fertilized with what I had been experiencing or what I'd been intuitively picking up, is that of course, we're in this time of change. We've all talked about that. And in many ways, we're in a cocoon. Again, we've heard those words. Some people are talking about an eye of a storm. To me, we're also in the void of the Great Mother, so that we are in that unknown space, that mystery. But I want you to understand that in this space is not empty. And even though we talk about a cocoon, it looks like some watery mass out of which a butterfly might emerge, it's actually full of possibilities. it's like floating in this ocean of possibilities. And it's saying, I can become anywhere, anything from here. And what we're all doing is making decisions that what we don't want to take with us through into that next part of our lives. In other words, as I've said, because we're on lockdown, many of us, because we're maybe isolated from our work, from our friends, we're still maybe making contact with them through Zoom, etc. But we're in a place where you may well be working just as hard or even harder, but there's a lot of things that you may not have on your list. And there may be things you're saying, wow, I really miss that because it feeds my soul. And other things you say, I don't miss that. That's not important to me anymore. Maybe some of you do a lot of traveling to your work and back, and not having to travel is like, wow, that's really nice. I'm glad I don't have to do that. But I'm missing being able to go out to my gym or my swimming pool, and even to sit at Starbucks. It's one of my treats, my little treats. I'm very simple with my treats. But I can meet my friends on Zoom, but I miss this being able to take myself off. This is my moon in Aquarius, needs that space, that silent space. And I can walk, and I can certainly be that in my own home, but there's something about my joy of going to the community that is my gym or my swimming pool or Starbucks. And I want you to realize just really what is important to you and what isn't. And what we're doing is really digging deep, as I've been sharing with you over these last few weeks, about what's important, what really resonates with me, and what doesn't anymore. And so Bashar talks about choosing your preferred reality, which is a lovely way of saying it. So what is the preferred reality? And again, please don't just say, oh, I like biking or I like swimming in my case. What does swimming do to you? What does biking do to you? What does meeting friends do to you that isn't happening now? So it's just breaking it down away from how we tend to describe things. What is the essence of something that you're missing or you don't ever want to do again? So really being true to what is my preferred reality. And you can only make that choice by believing that you have choice. So if you're feeling that the circumstances around us, such as the virus, are taking away all your choices, then you're missing the point, because you're allowing something outside of you to dictate how you live your life. And I've got to say, the probability is that's happened in the past. That having choice, it doesn't have to be easy choice, but making a choice is a powerful thing. Making a choice to do something, letting someone else choose for you, letting someone else take care of your body, letting someone else tell you what to do, is not an option anymore. And nor do you need to get permission to do something. So maybe you're someone who's always saying, well, what do you think? Or I need approval before I move forward. Or, well, what would other people think? None of that matters now, my friends. This isn't about getting permission. It isn't about getting approval. It isn't even caring about other people's criticism. If you're offended by criticism or looking for approval, you're still working from your solar plexus. We all are, but that's the place of littleness. That's the place of disempowerment. So it doesn't mean that I don't hear criticism or I don't enjoy approval, but it doesn't define me. Does that make sense? So being able to come home to yourself, be in the eye of the storm, stay centered. And it's been thrust upon us, or we, if I want to say, have called this in at this time. We've called in a situation that's allowed us to become isolated or become in lockdown. And we are being given the chance to now make a choice. What future do we want to create for ourselves? Forget everybody else. And don't just say, oh, I want peace and harmony. What's that actually going to look like? Well, how do you want to feel in that future? And we're going to be doing a meditation right at the end to meet your future self. And so another way of us looking at it is called the eye of the needle. And the eye of the needle, there is a saying from the Bible which says how hard it is for a rich man to go through the eye of the needle. Or some people talk about the camel going through the eye of the needle. And I've read different translations and I've learned that camel is not the right translation. It was probably a rope. We don't need to care about that. The key to this was you're going through an eye of a needle. And if you want to see an eye of the needle as something very small, like this, you want to then ask yourself, what baggage do I carry that will not go through the eye of the needle? And how you diverse yourself, how much you let go or dissolve what you've been carrying, the easier it will to go through the eye of the needle. Now, I've been talking about a new world coming and how that new world, and I've been shown in my intuitive learnings that this new world, we will not be able to take old baggage into the new world. That's not entirely true. Maybe I've been seeing it a bit too simplistically. I believe that we are in a time of splitting. So if you want to change that eye of the needle to a prism, then literally we are going through a situation where we are being, we're not being split. Depending on what we carry inside us is the reality we will meet. Now, I want to tell you about an event that I've seen. Maybe I can think of 3 events like this. One was on the Big Island, a place called the Place of Refuge. Some of you might have been there. One was in Ireland, and that was one of my favorite sites there, Glendalough. And another place was in Gozo, and that was in one of the very ancient temples. And what happened was there was this passageway. You could just say it was 2 walls, just 2 walls. And you walked between these 2 walls and you got into whatever site you were going into. And I watched people just walk through between the 2 walls, and they're like, yay, now let's see what's on the other side. Great, let's get on. What time is coffee and what time do we get back to the bus? But because I love speaking with stones, I've become very aware that these walls actually have an intelligence, and you could almost say they're like a computer. And so when you walk between these walls, these particular ones that are very ancient, very sacred, they're reading your reality. They're reading your consciousness. And then when we get to the other side of the wall, you will see what it is that your consciousness is ready to see. Ooh, how's that? That's how I've been taught it. That's how I see it. And I see it because as I walk through that passageway, and any of you have been on trips with me will say, yes, I've heard you say that, Christine. But I see people walking through without the consciousness of being aware of who they are. It's not being aware of where they are, who they are. Their mind is somewhere else. And on the other side, they go, oh, that wasn't worth coming through. There's nothing on the other side. And literally, you can only see what your consciousness is open to see. Now, I'm not being, I could keep saying that, you will only see what you know is already there. But we're at such an amazing time in our history. We will only, I could almost say we've never been through a prism like this for thousands of years. This is an amazing time. I could talk about prism like my 2 walls. We are in this decompression place between 2 walls, or in the eye of the needle. I know I keep mixing my metaphors, but nobody is making a decision for us, like, oh, what I'm going to see on the other side. We are making that decision. And that decision is based on what we're ready to let go of and what we're willing to stand into, expand into. Now, you might say, well, wouldn't everybody want to see everything? No, because if you've read my book, The Heart of the Great Mother, and I keep coming back to this meditation, I was shown that when we are given that choice, let's say we all walk through between those two walls, through the eye of the needle, whatever you want to call it, what do we get? 40% of people will immediately recreate what they've just left on the other side. 40% of people will fall asleep. That doesn't mean they physically fall asleep, but because it's new, they don't know what to do with it, so they'll be guided to let someone else tell them what they see. 15% will be confused, and I say confused as in, wow, this is new, and 5% will say, of course, this is what I expected. And again, before you jump in and say, oh, I'm one of the 5%, you're probably already stuck. So if you think you know where you're going, you probably are lost. Do you get me? So can you stay in the center of this wall? Can you walk into that wall between those two walls with an innocence? That's the word I use. In no sense. And how I like to see it is in no sense means in a sense, intuition. Can you follow your heart, your intuition between those walls, through the eye of the needle, without thought? Ooh. And without expectations, without needing permission, without asking that this should happen, can you be empty in your mind and still walk through? This isn't floating around outside, but can you stay centered in your beingness and walk between those walls? That's what we're being asked to do. And that requires all of us to control our minds. And that isn't an easy thing, still our minds, but it asks you to be consciously in control of your mind and say, hey, come back in my body. So staying present may just be living in your body. So when my mind starts wandering, I come back and I'm cooking or baking or I'm working in the garden. I really stay conscious and not allow my mind to flitter off, because a lot of the times when it flitters off, it's not very nice to me. Why did you do that? What should you have done? Has all that biting. So this is a great time for forgiving yourself, forgiving others, learning what you could from an experience, but choose not to spend more time in the past or in the future. And that's why I talk about letting go of expectations, because our expectations were like, well, my mother didn't love me. Now, you may feel this isn't very kind, but I'm going to say, who told you your mother was going to love you? Why did you expect that? Oh, she should. Well, she didn't. Right, let's move on. And you might say, oh, that's so mean, but it's the truth. So knowing that whoever it is not going to love you, or knowing that you're never going to make more money, or knowing, can you put a stop to the dreams that are never, ever going to come true? Just say, okay, enough. Where am I now? Because that la-la land of dreams is full of doubt, expectations, of meanness to yourself. Well, of course, nothing ever happens to you because nobody likes you because you're not a nice person. Oh, for my goodness. This is a story that just keeps repeating. Nothing is true. All that is true is now. I'm talking to you. I'm looking at you. I'm loving working with you. That's all. That's all that matters. I'm sitting in a chair. And that's all that matters, my friends. That's all you can say is reality. How's that? Does that sound reasonable? Now, so we're in this time, and Bashar talks about maybe this virus, and again, please, this virus is probably, let's say if it did exist, it is only one of millions of viruses that live within us, around us, and what we're being told in masking ourselves up or not shaking hands is ridiculous, because the more you connect with other people, the more you exchange your energies, the healthier your immune system is. That's all it is. So every moment when we meet someone, we're exchanging energy. That's just how we are. But if you feel stressed and fearful, guess what you're shedding? You're shedding fear and anxiety. If you are feeling joyful, you shed joy. And I've got a feeling this virus is almost not around anymore. Let's say it's run out, but we're keeping it going because we're now shedding fear and anxiety. And you'll say, oh yeah, but I could die, I could get sick. Well, you could do those anyway. You know, I know we can always go down a long list of things that could happen. And maybe at the moment you are living in a place where you haven't got much money and you are fearful, but those, in all situations, we can make some decisions. We can choose to get lost in that, or we can choose to make little tiny choices that bring us back into control of our own lives. I know it's not easy, but anybody who isn't in those situations, sending out your fear and anxiety isn't helping the people who have real fear and anxiety at this time. And having worked with a lot of people who are in fear of their lives in healthcare, they don't need me to add to it. Nor do they need me to say, oh, there, it will get better. They just need me to hear them, to be a witness. So I'm just trying to say, as we can't fix other people, we're never meant to fix other people. We are meant to be ourselves and be a beacon of light for other people. Be the positive change you want to bring to the world. Now, I just want to take a little piece out of my book here, because during this time of, let's call it dissolving to evolve, let's talk about the old hologram dissolving. And let's say there's a period of time that this has been happening. In fact, it's been happening, I think, way back since 1996. But we're in this state where things are dissolving. Those things that you thought you could hold on to are disappearing. Part of that is due to Pluto being in Capricorn. But there are those who will exploit this. One of the ways of exploiting will be through fear and shame. They want to, in some ways, create a new hologram that is of their making. So if they can get you on their side and create literally a world that is of their making rather than the world of your preference, then they'll be the winners. And again, there's going to be people who only choose that world. There will be maybe 40% of the population. It will say, no, I don't want to. I like living amongst fear and victimhood. Now, you might say, why would anybody want to do that? But we do. We're stubborn. Okay? All right, my friend. So let me just read this little bit. So there will, of course, be, this is the piece that says, there will, of course, be some who strive to maintain polarization, encouraging the enmity that exists between different factions, religions, political parties, and even sporting teams, seemingly to be on your side, but actually trying to keep you separate. If I can point a finger at someone else, it's China's fault, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, you're constantly being kept away from yourself. Does that make sense? So if I can do that, I gain your power. If I can make you feel ashamed or fearful or even elite, oh, look at us, we're better than them. That's all the game around the solar plexus of power games. So they use fear, shame, and suspicion of each other. Oh my goodness, we've got that. People snitching on each other to keep people separate. Knowing that cooperation, compassion, and true love, which involves trust, would lead to a disintegration of their tenuous authority. So it is about how do we cooperate? How do we come together? How do we have compassion for each other? And how quickly that is showing up in the virus, how we somehow think about only ourselves, or maybe we donate or we give, but true compassion is not seeing another person as an enemy. Oh, this person could spread the virus. I'm not going to look at them. I'm not going to smile at them. For goodness sake, they are another part of you. These people who would prefer that we stay with shame are masters of charmed threats, which emotionally persuade us not to rock the boat and cleverly distort the true meaning of unity by saying my way or the highway. To perpetuate their cause, these societies or individuals often exploit the chaos and uncertainty that commonly exist during such times. Such puppeteers frequently persuade their followers that they will only feel safe against the enemy, the virus, by returning to the old ways controlled by them, taking vaccines. It's not hard, I might say, for me to identify present-day individuals or groups who have a vested interest in maintaining control through the excitement of fear and shame. Yet despite the propaganda, and this was my inner teacher speaking, large numbers of ordinary people are waking up to the fact that many of the dogmas that have been taught for centuries are based on flawed reasoning. Millions of people are listening to their own inherent guidance or intuition, which tells a very different tale. Through inner knowing, they are reconnecting to the pulse of the Great Mother's heart and remembering their own soul's purpose or destiny in this life to bring heaven onto earth and plant their unique seeds of consciousness and hence create a new world. And that's you, my friends. I'm talking to you. You are unique. You have a unique seed. And it's not about doing, it's about becoming. It's about allowing that to happen. So in this time of disseminating moon, I want to offer this meditation. I wasn't always going to offer a different meditation for each moon time, but this feels relevant for today. So once again, if you're in a good space to meditate, please do. If not, do this later. And please to close your eyes. Wherever you are, if it's lying down, just use your breath, short breath in, long breath out to come down into your body. Your body is the alchemical vessel that will change everything. In other words, it's through our body that we experience our spiritualness. Now take your awareness to your heart chakra, breathing in and out of your heart chakra. See yourself in a corridor, and at the end of the corridor is a closed door. Just look around your corridor, where it is, whether there's color in your corridor, feeling your feet on the ground. You walk towards the door. Stay in your heart, stay in your heart. You're innocent. Know that on the other side of the door is your future you. Doesn't even have to look like you. It doesn't even have to look human. Again, be surprised, be outside the norm. When you open that door, before you open it, do not open it yet. The being, the person you're going to see is the you that is calling you into the future, calling you through that wall, between those walls, calling you through the eye of the needle. And on the count of 3, you will open the door and you will see yourself in the future. 1, 2, 3, now. Who or what appears? Now don't get lost in trying to see details. Feel what is the energy on the other side. You may see a form, may take a form of an animal or a human. It may be big, it might be small. Maybe soft, maybe loving. All I want you to do is feel its essence, your future self essence. You may get a symbol, you may get a color. Stay with it. And as you walk through the doorway, be with this being, this character. Just for a moment, feel what it's like to be with this character, and if you want, even step into it. How does that feel? Now, knowing you can come back to this character, or maybe if you needed to do the process again to get more clarity. I don't mind if you stay on the other side of the door, but I ask you to start to gently bring your awareness back to the room where you are. In your own time, open your eyes. And when you're ready, just give a few deep breaths. And if you did meet a part of yourself, make sure you meet this part, especially before you go to sleep at night. And even better, live as if you are this part character for 3 days, for these next 3 days of the disseminating moon. You may not get a full form, but just the feeling. Until we meet again, the next phase of our moon, many blessings and love to you. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and now playing on iHeartRadio. You can also watch the archive podcasts on YouTube. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, including her newest Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.